Thank you all for joining me here today for this important conversation. Since the U.S. Supreme Court's Grants Pass decision in June, there's been a feeling that something's changed in how law enforcement and other government workers are treating and responding to unhoused folks in New Mexico, particularly in Albuquerque. Now, we've heard lots of anecdotal stories, and Albuquerque's Human Rights Board is working now on a report about the treatment of homeless people. Councilor Rogers, I want to start with you. What have you heard from your constituents? Has there been a change or a shift in how the city is approaching unhoused people in your district, to your knowledge?
Yeah, thank you for having me. This is something I definitely hear about daily from constituents in my district. Really the dilemma for my district is folks are um, r really wanting to figure out how we can help, but also want to protect what they've built in the homes that they've bought and the neighborhoods they've called home, some for 50 plus years. And so I think the shift for what I'm seeing in my district specifically is, people are just getting fatigued. I call it compassion fatigue, which is something that I dealt with in the hospital when I worked at UNM Hospital with nurses. And I'm seeing that in the community. People are just at a loss for what to do, how to help, but they know something needs to be done and just don't know what that is. And so I'm worried that public opinion is shifting and people are going to start calling for lawmakers to criminalize homelessness. And really, that's criminalizing poverty, in my opinion. And so we already have several ways that we do that in the city of Albuquerque with our encampment sweeps, with trespassing laws. And so, when we don't think in Albuquerque we have things like Grant Pass Oregon, no, we may not have civil penalties or those types of things, but we definitely have laws on the books already that can be used and are used to criminalize homelessness.
Are you aware of law enforcement changing their tactics in any way in terms of less notice, more sweeps in shorter periods of time in your district right now since the decision?
Yeah, I think I brought it up at a council meeting right after the decision. I've seen the encampment sweeps happening much more. I think I did bring that up in a meeting that this Supreme Court ruling came down, and the next week I did see a lot more movement in my district around encampments.
Okay.
And so, look, the bottom line is we have to have a better response that actually puts people into housing with wraparound services. That is what we need, and that's what we do not have. And so I think that's where the conversation needs to shift, is not shelters that are a temporary fix for are supposed to be for one night, where we know we have people living at shelters for 6 plus years, and that we're failing. And I think that's evident by what you see, especially in my district along Central. You can see it very clearly.
Thank you. Now, Peter, uh, you spoke on our air in May about the rights of unhoused people. Briefly, how has the Grants Pass decision impacted the constitutional rights of homeless people in New Mexico? And what's the state of their rights for that population under our state constitution?
It remains to be seen exactly how that case will affect us here. Many of you who are watching probably know there's a lawsuit that's been underway now for about a year and a half. It's called Williams versus Albuquerque. It's a proposed class action on behalf of all people who are involuntarily unhoused, that is, people who have no available dwelling that is fit for human occupation at this time. And in that case, it was brought in state court solely under the state constitution. And so, without being too technical, the state constitution in some ways follows exactly the United States Constitution, and in some ways is quite different. And there are no cases that I'm aware of where the cruel and unusual punishment aspects of what do we do to poor people have been litigated in New Mexico separate from federal law. So we don't know yet, and we won't know until the Supreme Court of New Mexico tells us what cruel and unusual punishment means with respect to unhoused people who have no place to be and who are sleeping on essential human function on public land. So that's one thing. But the thing that is thus far not understood by most people is that the claims being brought in that lawsuit were knowingly brought by good, smart lawyers who saw that there was some hazard that this Supreme Court of the United States decision would go this way. So they have other claims that were not addressed in any way by Grants Pass. So we all have a substantive due process right to not being harmed by the government. They don't owe us anything. If I'm poor and I'm sitting on the street, the government doesn't really owe us anything under the United States Constitution. But we are all entitled to not be affirmatively harmed by the government. That's substantive due process right. And that is unchanged. And what the facts are perfectly clear that city employees are consuming annually millions of city dollars to take people who are safely sheltered in a tent inside of a sleeping bag, keeping away from the cold. And the city is paying people to take away the tent and the sleeping bag in the winter. They're also forcing people to go out to the West Side Shelter. And the West Side Shelter had 9 deaths reported in 2023. I don't know how many deaths so far in 2024, but all kinds of harm from sexual assault to theft to physical beatings happens to people there, as well as they don't get their medical needs met. And so the city is causing harm. Danger creation is prohibited by the 14th Amendment to the United States Constitution and by the state constitution. So the behavior is still unconstitutional, even though the Grants Pass says the federal constitution does not prohibit punishing people criminally. Right. But we don't know, and we won't know for quite some time, what the New Mexico Constitution prohibits.
Rachel, I want to shift to you. In this year's point in time count by the New Mexico Coalition to End Homelessness, it shows the number of people living unhoused in Albuquerque has reached a new high. The number listed was around 1,200 people. That's an increase from 977 last year. But even the study's author says that that's going to be a massive undercount. How do organizations like yours deal with data holes like that, but also these steady increases when you don't have the firm data to back it up, but you're aware that these numbers are climbing?
Right. The point in time count gives us really important information every year. It's not a census. It is a snapshot of a point in time on a single night, only of those folks that we can count on the street or in the shelter. And so it does not account for the huge majority of people that are moving in and out of homelessness throughout the year, folks in motels and jails, hospitals at the time of the count. So we know the count is likely 2.5 to 10 times higher than what you see in the report. The 2024 report that just came out indicated on a single night, actually 2,700 people, over 2,700 people in Albuquerque were experiencing homelessness on one night. And that's doubled from 2 years ago. So in 2022, that number was 1,300. And we're not surprised. I think anyone doing this work in homeless services or in housing knows that the numbers are going to continue to increase. Councilor Rogers indicated what we're doing isn't working. It's our systems that are failing people right now. And it's decades of bad public policy that have created homelessness. And until we get our rents under control, until we build more housing to stabilize rents and make sure people have access to abundant housing options that everyone deserves, we're just going to continue to see these numbers grow. So what does that mean for folks on the ground like Albuquerque Healthcare for the Homeless and our partners trying to reach people as numbers continue to grow? We have to be very proactive in our outreach. Everything we do at Healthcare for the Homeless and our 4 walls, we take out to the street, everything we can do in the field. And so that's what we have to do right now. And that's what we'll continue to do. I think regardless of the ruling, the Supreme Court ruling, we knew that it wasn't going to solve homelessness, and we were prepared that it could make homelessness worse. And so we have to be prepared with our systems to respond. And our integrated health outreach model is a perfect example of how we are constantly innovating to make sure that we're getting the services out to people throughout our whole service area. We cover all of Bernalillo County. We have to find people where they are as people are continually being moved from place to place. We're addressing this as the public health issue that it is too. And so Peter mentioned mortality data. That's something that we look at here quite closely at Healthcare for the Homeless. We're lucky to work with the medical investigator in the state of New Mexico. We've seen a 138% increase in homeless deaths from 2018 to 2022. That's not taking into account the past 2 years. And we are concerned that these numbers are going to continue to rise. There's also a great study that came out of JAMA, the Journal of American Medicine, that showed 150% indicated increase in overdose deaths due to forced displacement, moving people, concentrating people into unsafe places. And so for us, this is really a public health issue. It's an issue of life or death. And that's why our integrated health outreach has to respond and has to be proactive. And I'll just end with saying, because of this court ruling, it doesn't change anything for us. And these are things that people on the street have been experiencing for decades. We've been around for almost 40 years responding to this, but we are concerned it will make it worse. And we feel that we shouldn't even be having this conversation about whether we can move someone's makeshift shelter, how we move it, when we move it, how much notice. We should really be focusing on how do we get more abundant housing supply that everyone needs and deserves in our community. And until we shift the energy and focus and community resources towards those solutions, we're just wasting our time having these conversations.
Now, I'm sure everyone saw the recent news stories reporting that Governor Michelle Lujan Grisham is interested in taking a path similar to California Governor Gavin Newsom's, empowering the state to sweep encampments, encouraging local governments to do the same. It sounds like, based on some of that reporting, that Albuquerque mayor is interested too. Does that seem like a viable solution to you, Councilor Rogers?
No, no, the city's already been doing that. So we didn't need the governor to tell us that. The mayor has already been sweeping encampments and really playing the shell game with people. And no, it's not working. It's clear it's not working because all people are being offered is, like Mr. Cooper said, is a trip to the West Side Shelter. And that's not, I did a pop-up visit there myself, and we wouldn't even be able to legally house prisoners there in the conditions that it's in. So I know the city's working very diligently now to get those things fixed, but not, no, it's not a strategy that's going to actually help us help meet people where they are, to get them the things they need. And again, I have to stress that the root cause here is poverty. Poverty is the root cause. You can say substance abuse, you can say mental health. None of that matters other than poverty, because if folks could pay for care, they would get the care that they needed. Folks can't pay for housing. Folks can't pay for their mental health, can't pay to go to substance abuse services, especially if you're on Medicaid. And so we must change the conversation and talk about alleviating suffering and alleviating poverty. That is, for New Mexico, especially District 6, is generational. So it's not something they can just go to their mom as a safety net or go to their dad or grandma for a safety net. We are criminalizing poverty. And that is what we need to be talking about, that as the root cause.
Thank you all. I'm sorry to end it there. I know that was quick, but we'll be back for another segment in just a few minutes. Thank you.